With the recent Stop Asian Hate movement and the conviction of Derek Chauvin, I think it's a good time to talk about microaggressions.
He's making it up.
Wait, back up. How do you know that he's gay?
Gay men know designers. Straight men don't.
Oh, unpopular Vietnam was.
I'm not Vietnamese, I'm American.
Of course you are.
But the point of this video is not to decide whether focusing on microaggressions is good or bad, because I think we're very unclear and divided on what actually counts as a microaggression. There was a TikTok I saw the other day where a white woman was recommending buckwheat noodles as a healthier pasta alternative. And I watched the whole video because I love food content, and I was curious about what the recipe was. After the video was done, I scrolled down to the comment section to see if anyone had tried out her recipe, and I was honestly so surprised to see a lot of people attacking her. Here, I'll play the beginning of the TikTok for you.
I am always on the hunt for healthier pasta alternatives, and buckwheat noodles are one of my favorite. They look like little worms, but they taste so good. You can get them 100% buckwheat, so then they're celiac friendly, or you can get them with a bit of wheat flour in them.
So people were upset at her for promoting microaggressions by comparing the noodles to little worms. And I understand the reasons people are giving. As someone who grew up eating Asian lunches in Western school environments, I know how awkward and unsettling it can feel to be enjoying your chive baozi in class and then hearing your classmates go, "Ew, what is that smell?" Or being asked one too many times how dog tastes. Comparing buckwheat noodles to little worms might further contribute to this idea that Asian food is outworldly or not normal. But then why didn't I get triggered by this TikTok? Well, because I think they look like little worms too. When she said that phrase, I interpreted it as a descriptive observation, perhaps even a way to reassure skeptics by validating their skepticism. Like, I know it may not look the most appetizing, but trust me, you should try it. Now, this example is not me trying to argue that I am right, but rather I want to show how differently people can conceptualize microaggressions. Some people found it a microaggression, others like me did not. I think what we need to do then is backtrack and discuss what is a microaggression before we can make any value judgments on this topic. After reading and listening to a lot of different definitions for the term microaggression, here are the necessary conditions I picked out in order for something to be one. 1. It is discriminatory, insulting, or hostile on the grounds of some identity, such as gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, class, you know the list. 2. They are subtle in some way, either in its briefness or its sense of commonality, like, oh, this is something I've heard people say a lot, so I'm not gonna think twice about it. 3. Their subtlety means that intent doesn't matter, and in fact, the focus usually is on the unintentional. Now, someone might disagree with the intent doesn't matter part. I mean, doesn't justice rely on taking intentions into account? Isn't that why an accidental car crash is not nearly as bad as an intentional one? Well, the thinking behind microaggressions is that the subtlety makes intent ambiguous. The person on the receiving end has to try and figure out what the microaggressor meant by their words or actions, and will often try to justify the microaggressor's actions to make it okay, maybe thinking, oh, they probably didn't mean that, or they were trying to say something nice, so it's okay, I should let them off the hook, when really it's the microaggressor that should be apologizing. The fact that microaggressions are subtle and ambiguous means that we should always assume potential microaggressions are microaggressions in order to avoid ever invalidating any victims. Not saying this is the right approach, but it's definitely the most popular way of thinking. Okay, so let's test a couple potential microaggressions against these conditions. Starting with, no, but where are you really from? Is it discriminatory, insulting, or hostile towards some identity? Yes. It's hinting that because you don't look like the dominant race or ethnicity, you must be an outsider. Is it subtle? Yep. I'm just curious about your background, the same way I'd ask anyone else where they were from. Does intent matter? No. If you don't believe an Asian person who tells you they're from Toronto and have to further ask, no, but where are you really from? Your bias is at play whether you're aware of it or not. Okay, so that's a microaggression. What about this one? You look so pretty for a trans woman. Is it discriminatory, insulting, or hostile against some identity? Yeah, you're implying that trans women aren't supposed to be pretty. Is it subtle? What? I was complimenting her. I called her pretty. Does intent matter? Well, the fact that you had to add on for a trans woman means bias is at play, whether conscious or not. So no, intent doesn't matter. Now those two are more commonly heard phrases that most people would agree are microaggressions. But what about the following? Hi guys! Is it discriminatory, insulting, or hostile towards some identity? Well, you could say it's insinuating that males are the best gender or the only gender that actually counts as persons, which is sexist the same way defaulting to man instead of human or he instead of she or they is. So, check, I guess. Is it subtle? Yep, it's a very brief comment and one of the most commonplace phrases to exist. If there's one phrase that's difficult to call problematic, it's hi guys. Given that it's so common, I'm guessing people who say hi guys aren't secretly thinking, I hate women and trans and non-binary people, thus I will refer to everyone as guys. So it definitely can be unintentional. But hi guys doesn't feel like a microaggression or as much as no, but where are you really from or you look pretty for a trans woman. But why not? It seems to satisfy all three necessary conditions that we said define microaggression. Perhaps because the term guys has become quite gender neutral, so we don't really have to wonder whether there's some subconscious malicious intent when people use it. The phrase hi guys is so commonplace that everyone uses it and so no one is offended by it. Except there are people who are offended by it.
And that's heteronormative and not inclusive at all. And to be honest and to level with the viewers, being a good self-conscious modern person demands and requires us to live up to a standard of inclusivity.
Even though the term guys has evolved beyond a male connotation, and even though the people who should be offended, i.e. women and non-binary people, are largely not, the harmful origin as to why we default to guys still seems to matter. I think then this will help clarify what we mean by insulting or hostile. For microaggressions, these terms are focused on structural discrimination. It's not about whether you hurt or didn't hurt me. It's about whether you strengthen discriminatory structures and norms. Which is why even if my grade 7 crush tells me, you're not like other girls, and 12-year-old me is like, oh my god, it's still considered a microaggression. The victim's lack of individual hurt doesn't change the structural ideas that my crush is feeding into. Okay, then the next question is, which structures do we care about? In 2010, two students from Columbia University started a blog called the Microaggressions Project. And in 2014, someone accused a lesbian of committing a microaggression because she said, I don't date bisexuals. They're never faithful. When I first read this comment, my instinct was, yeah, of course this is a microaggression. They're generalizing an entire group in a way that contributes to the harmful stereotype of bi people being promiscuous and unloyal just because they like two genders. But then I asked myself, do I react the same way to comments like, I don't date straight guys, all they want is sex? It's the same format of coming to a negative conclusion about an entire group through generalizing some negative attribute. But honestly, I don't feel the same annoyance as I did when the shaming was towards bi people. Because I don't classify straight guys as a marginalized group, I was much more accepting of this negative generalization. So microaggressions only count if they're directed towards historically oppressed groups? But wait. Several readings I looked into cited helping elderly people as potential microaggressions. For instance, you try to be kind and help an old lady cross the street when she actually didn't need that help. Or you see a boomer struggling with the self-checkout machine, and so you go over to try and explain how to use it when in reality they were just struggling to find their credit card. The claim is that assuming people of older age need help assumes that they are less capable, and that is a microaggression. But the elderly are not a historically oppressed group. They're respected by many cultures, and there's an expectation to take special care of our grandparents. It seems they're vulnerable in another way. Physically weaker and more prone to health problems. So microaggressions only count if they're targeted towards people who are vulnerable? But everyone is vulnerable in some way, so where do we draw that line? I'm going to be honest, right now it seems like the line is drawn between vulnerabilities society cares about and vulnerabilities we don't. We care a lot about the "no, but where are you really from?" But people being shocked at Susan Boyle having a beautiful voice is not seen as a problem. And this is not to say majoritarian decision making is bad. It's just important to acknowledge that that is what we're doing. At this point, is anybody wondering what the difference is between a microaggression and a misunderstanding? Misunderstanding. A failure to understand something correctly, often due to missing facts or misinformation around intentions. Okay, so you're a white person who grew up in a predominantly white area. All the people of color that you've met or seen on TV speak poor to no English. Suddenly you go to university and you meet an Indian student who speaks perfect English. "Wow, your English is so good," you tell them. Now, does this situation satisfy the definition of a misunderstanding? Were you missing facts? Yes, nearly nothing in your life gave you empirical evidence to believe that there were lots of people of color who speak good or perfect English. Was there a miscommunication about intentions? Again, yes, you think you are giving a compliment when you tell the student your English is so good. And what you failed to understand correctly was how backhanded that compliment is. This has met the conditions of what it means to be a misunderstanding. Then what's the difference between this scenario and someone misreading a text causing them to show up 2 hours late to a date? Well, I think because as awful as it is to be late to a date, I don't mistakenly read 2 p.m. as 4 p.m. because I unconsciously think black people are dangerous. It's just because I'm freaking dyslexic or something. It seems then that microaggressions are a specific type of misunderstanding, and they point to a harmful source behind these misunderstandings to justify why we should treat them differently than, say, misunderstanding a question on a test. It's weird though, we've established that microaggressions are insulting or hostile actions or words that feed into structural problems. And the fact that so many microaggressions occur unintentionally is because of the structures and systems that we live in and interact with. But they seem to still put the burden and blame on individuals. Now, should individuals make an effort to combat insulting unconscious biases? Absolutely, 100%. But should our anger be directed towards individual people? There's a difference between telling someone that they said something wrong versus perceiving that person as the main source of that wrong. Maybe it's because I've been listening to too much Michel Foucault, but Foucault talks about how the most effective prison is not one where there is some single totalitarian ruler who watches everyone, think Big Brother in 1984. Rather, it is when a system makes everyone watch each other, leaving the system itself intact. So what is a microaggression? It is a specific type of misunderstanding that is discriminatory, insulting, or hostile on the grounds of some vulnerable identity that society largely cares about. They are subtle in some way, either in its briefness or its sense of commonality, even if it is a phrase or act adopted by all, such as, "Hi guys." And their subtlety means that intent doesn't matter, and in fact the focus usually is on the unintentional. Whether you think this should be our definition of microaggressions is totally up for debate, but I'm curious as to whether you guys think, I literally just did it there. I'm curious as to whether everyone thinks, "Hi guys," or comparing buckwheat noodles to little worms is a microaggression or not. If you think my definition needs fixing, also please leave a comment and let me know. I love talking and hearing your thoughts, and hopefully I'll chat with you guys all soon. Oh my god, I said it again. Bye.